Welcome back, Defenders. Russia has a serious problem. 3-week Ukrainian drone blitz cuts 13.5% of Russian oil capacity, triggering a price crisis. Moscow's energy infrastructure collapse is forcing Russian consumers to pay record fuel prices, while the Kremlin is struggling to maintain both domestic supply and military operations. Something changed on August 1st, and Ukraine has not been holding back. Every single night, they've been targeting a Russian oil refinery, and it's been like 8 or 9 in the last 3 weeks. Third fire in days, Lukoil's Volgograd refinery burns again. In less than a week, the facility has sustained at least one confirmed attack, but the refinery keeps catching on fire. Last night, Ukraine struck another refinery in Rostov. This is the Novoshakhtinsk oil refinery. And it looks pretty bad. I don't think they're going to fix this in a day. Which is leading to this inside of Russia. Fuel shortages hit Russia's Far East as Ukrainian strikes take refineries offline. Videos are being flooded across Russian social media of gas lines. There's a gas panic in Russia's Far East as gas stations are running out of gasoline, causing ordinary Russians to queue up for up to a kilometer outside gas stations that still have fuel so they can fill up their cars.
А вот такая очередь на мельничной. Прям на дороге, нахуй. Нихуя себе. Мне даже бензина не хватит, нахуй, не стоять.
As of right now, this is just Russia's Far East. It's not their core territories like St. Petersburg and Moscow. But when the perimeter of your empire starts to degrade, it tends to spread to the core. This is causing a lot of strife inside Russia. Here are 2 Russian men arguing with each other at a gas station, probably after waiting for a long time to fill up their cars.
Когда подошел человек, объясняет, за ним стоит человек. Я вот не закрыл дорогу. Вот что понимаешь тогда? Чего не понимаешь? По-русски.
Russia is now a petro-state that does not have enough petrol for their own people. These videos are showing up online, and I don't think it's going to get better, guys. Here are 2 Russian Z-bloggers talking to each other, complaining about the economic situation of Russia. And this is very telling. This is what pro-war Russian bloggers are now saying about the Russian economy. Interesting laws are being passed. Housing and utility payments are rising sharply in our country. Against this backdrop, the president's ratings are falling, and there is also great concern among the administration. At the same time, it is objectively completely unclear when and how the special operation will end, how deep the financial and economic crisis will be, because the central bank and everyone else are with us and have no intention of going anywhere. What are your interlocutors saying? And what do you think about the current situation? Where are we headed? Well, I would distinguish between several areas. The first is about the economic crisis. I guess it's no longer a secret that we could face serious economic challenges in the fall. What does this mean? I've already spoken about this a long time ago, and many economic analysts have said that the real sector of the economy, I mean the industrial sector, is in very deplorable state. Even flagship companies of our economy like Rostelmash, which produces combines, St. Petersburg Tractor Factory, and, for example, agricultural producers who are now complaining that due to the heat, they've lost up to 80% of their crops. This is a Russian car manufacturer which has sent large numbers of people on unpaid leave, both leave and the reduction of the work week. Yes, a reduction of the work week, which also means a reduction in salaries and so on and so forth. We are facing challenging times, considering that funds are running out. There is a 20% sequestration of educational programs across the country. A big question is, what will happen with the dollar by the end of the year, simply because traditionally the dollar rises and social obligations must be fulfilled, which means the budget will definitely need to be replenished through this. Overall, it can be said that this fall, several of the major enterprises may declare bankruptcy because they are all currently in a pre-bankruptcy state. And accordingly, by the fall, we will see not only an increase in utility prices, they have already risen by 17 to 20%, and even deputies of the State Duma have expressed concern that there is some unjustified, very large increase in utility prices by general standards. All of this could lead to serious economic problems because salaries, for the most part, are not growing, and if they do grow, they are not growing at the pace one would like. Pensions will be indexed, but again, we understand that there is official inflation, and then there is unofficial inflation, which exists on its own. These are pro-war Russian bloggers saying their economy is screwed. Everything is going to go bankrupt this fall. Prices for housing and utilities and groceries are going up twice as fast as salaries if they're growing at all. But factories are laying off employees, they're cutting their work week, they're reducing salaries. Everything in Russia is economically getting worse, and the people know it. Krasnodar drought inflicts nearly 600 million in crop losses. This is according to the head of the local agribusiness lobby. Drought damage in the northern districts of Krasnodar totals about 46 billion rubles. This is a crisis. Russia just lost $500 million worth of crops due to drought, and that's $500 million that their economy just lost. These are farmers. These are, the combine producers, factories. This is going to devastate Russia's economy, and things are only going to get worse once the banks start failing and they require a bailout from the Kremlin. Ukraine's not going to help them. Ukraine special forces light up Russian fuel trains in occupied Crimea. This is in Jankoy. Another Russian fuel train was hit. I'll link the video down below, but this was a successful operation, and the occupied territories are being starved of fuel right now. This is on the heels of a successful strike in Zaporizhia. This was 2 days ago. Ukraine's intelligence has released the videos of the train strike. They've also released these pictures, and I don't know how they got these pictures unless the Russians took them. But because this fuel train was destroyed on the tracks, this damaged the tracks, and they have to clear all the cars before they can fix the tracks and then have this line operational again. So logistics, this is a nightmare. This is a huge problem for the Russians, and as soon as they fix it, Ukraine's just going to strike the next fuel car. They are watching this rail line. It's within 40 kilometers of the front line, and Ukraine probably has FPV drones that can now go 40 kilometers on a fiber optic cable. Can a flamingo missile a day keep the Russians away? This is what is going to have the Russians panicking once they understand the devastation coming. The manufacturer of Ukraine's new long-range missile said the production capacity is 1 per day at present, with the goal of reaching 7 per day by October. This is Ukraine's new cruise missile, and they're already producing 1 a day, with the goal of 7 per day by October. That's only 2 months away. This is huge. The Associated Press was allowed to do, I guess, a tour of the facility, and they put out this video. Let me share a little bit of this of the factory producing these Flamingo missiles.
weapon production is a huge guarantee of Ukraine independence, but also European safety. The overall technical characteristics is not much different from a Shahed. Of course, it has different construction, but the function is the same. The maximum range is 3,000 kilometers confirmed, with an accuracy of 14 meters to target on this distance. And the payload capacity is, in the moment, 1,150 kilograms. Right now, Ukraine is holding this barrier and, let's say, it's exporting safety to other countries.
I guarantee you this facility is entirely underground, at least 30 feet underground. Russia cannot destroy this with Kinzhal missiles or Iskander missiles or Caliber cruise missiles. They can bomb the surface, but Ukraine is going to keep producing these underground. And here's the range, 3,000 kilometers, meaning that 70 of Russia's 90 air bases are now within striking distance. And Ukraine is not going to hold back. Russia deserves everything that's going to happen to them once these missiles start firing. And the Russians know it. Here is Olga on Kremlin State TV talking about this report about the production of new Flamingo missiles. Here's what Olga is saying. The Kyiv regime is circulating footage allegedly showing the use of, allegedly, a new Ukrainian Flamingo missile, or rather a missile that is not entirely Ukrainian. As an Associated Press journalist pointed out, the Ukrainian wonder weapon looks like the twin brother of the British FP5 Million missile, which was demonstrated just 6 months ago at the IDEX 2025 Defense Exhibition in Abu Dhabi. It was announced there that the heavy FP5 cruise missile carries a 1-ton warhead, reaches speeds of up to 950 kilometers per hour, and can strike targets at a distance of 3,000 kilometers. Coincidentally, the Ukrainian missile has similar characteristics. This means that the entire European part of Russia, the Urals and even parts of western Siberia, fall within its range. Yeah, I would guess that the British and the Germans had something to do with this design and helping Ukraine domestically produce their own cruise missiles. So we're going to see what happens together, guys. That's a nice Kerch bridge you have there. Would be a shame if something bad happened to it. 12 days of production, 12 Flamingo missiles, all targeting the archway. I think that bridge is coming down. Ukraine took a strike at it 2 months ago with a drone boat, so if they've got their own domestically produced cruise missiles, they're going to go for it. I think that bridge is coming down in either September or October. Ukraine clears settlements near Pokrovsk, over 200 Russian troops killed in 3 days. This was the salient or breakthrough that Russia had. It was 18 kilometers, bypassing Pokrovsk. They got into a main defense dugout, and this was alarming, but Ukraine sent the Azov Brigade to crush them, and more or less they cleared them from the trenches, and they've reclaimed this territory. But it's still a static front line, guys. Pokrovsk still holds. Konstantinivka still holds. They've been holding for over a year now. Russia keeps attacking, and they're not making significant progress. Russia's victorious mood has turned to despair. Syrskyi on the frontline situation. This is incredible because in June, Putin announced the creation of a buffer zone in the Sumy Oblast and did not rule out the possibility of taking control of the city of Sumy. Now, halfway through August, the Russian plan in Sumy appears to have failed, with only 2 small pockets under Russian control remaining. I showed the clip of Putin in June. He said that because Ukraine attacked Russia, Ukraine invaded Kursk, if you remember, that Russia had to go into Sumy to create a buffer zone to protect Russian territory. So in June or July, they launched this offensive. 60,000 troops, 80,000 troops, 120,000 troops, 30,000 North Koreans were going to help them. And they accomplished nothing. They got their teeth kicked in. I said in my videos the concern is if the Russians could just get here, this bend in the road, then they would be within artillery and FPV range of the city of Sumy. That was 3 months ago. The Russians are incompetent. They can't even reach this bend in the highway, let alone threaten the city of Sumy. Let's get to the politics. According to Politico, European leaders support Trump's Russia talks while expecting them to fail and expose Putin's true intentions. Zelensky understands the game to play with Trump now. Whatever Trump wants to say, whatever he wants to do, you just kind of smile and nod. Let him say what he wants to say, let him do what he wants to do, as long as Ukraine isn't being forced to do what he wants. So if Trump wants to meet Putin, if Trump wants a face-to-face, if Trump... whatever. Nobody in Europe believes this man can do anything. They just want him to continue selling weapons, because that's the only help the United States is providing at the moment. But as far as Ukraine giving up territory for peace, this just isn't going to happen. The Ukrainians said no, everyone in Europe said no, and this has probably been explained to Trump why they're not going to do this, but this territory of Donetsk, Ukraine has been building up their fortifications and defense lines for 11 years. These 9 not occupied cities are fortresses. Dobrovolye, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, Liman, Seresk, Konstantinivka, Pokrovsk. For Russia to take just this pocket of cities, for them to clear and take all these defense structures, this would take the Russians another 3 years, and probably another 1 million casualties. Which is why Ukraine's never going to give it up. Because if the Russians take all this because they're given it, they're just going to move on, go to Izium, go to Lazov, go to Pavlorad. Russia's not going to stop these wars. Here is President Macron. He was in the White House with Trump. This is what the president of France thinks. I think the optimism of your President Trump is to be taken seriously. So if he considers he can get a deal done, this is great news. And we have to do whatever we can to have a great deal being fixed and concluded. But a great deal is a deal with security guarantees and a robust peace. As far as I'm concerned, when I look at the situation and the facts, I don't see President Putin really willing to get peace, at least not now. But perhaps I'm being too pessimistic. If Trump wants to talk to Putin, fine, whatever. Putin's not going to stop these wars, and Trump isn't going to accomplish anything. And this is getting really awkward for Americans, especially Americans who support Trump. Most Americans reject Russian land grab in Ukraine. Yes, they want more European involvement, but support for Ukraine amongst Trump's supporters is actually going up. Here is the polling. Support for sending U.S. military aid to Ukraine. And this was not a divisive political issue in February of 2022. 80% of Republicans supported sending military aid to Ukraine. But then Trump started attacking Ukraine. Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, RFK Jr., Ukraine is corrupt, Ukraine is stealing the money, Ukraine has biolabs and they're full of Nazis, and Zelensky's a dictator. So the GOP base was being bombarded with all this propaganda through the November 2024 election, and support for military aid to Ukraine among Republicans went down to 30%. But all the propaganda BS has stopped since the election in November, and support for sending military aid amongst Republicans, these are Trump's supporters, it's now a majority. It's now 51 saying, Trump said Putin was his friend, he could get a peace deal in 24 hours, if we stop sending weapons, the war will end. But it's been 8 months, and the Russians aren't making progress. The Russians are no closer to winning this war today than they were 8 months ago, even with the United States cutting off military support. There is no diplomatic solution. There is no peace deal. Putin has no intention of ever stopping these wars, and he's just going to start the next one if he somehow wins in Ukraine. And Trump's response could not be any more pathetic. India resumes Russian oil imports despite US tariffs. So Trump is saying, we don't want Congress to pass sanctions on Russia. I'm going to do it with tariffs. So I'm going to put a 25% tariff on India because they're buying Russian oil. And India doesn't care. This is the dumbest economic plan ever. A tariff is a tax that US consumers pay on imports. So in response to Russia invading Ukraine, American consumers are going to pay higher taxes on stuff they buy from India. This isn't going to stop the war. It's not going to stop India. It's not going to stop China. It's not going to stop Russia. Trump has no plan. No plan of any kind. Reality check. Nothing that happened in Alaska or Washington, D.C. will make Russia think they have anything new to lose by continuing to kill Ukrainians. They won't stop until we stop them. Peace through strength. That's the only way this war will end. So here are the Russians last night launching 574 drones and 40 missiles. They did avoid the capital city of Kyiv because they don't want this making headlines. But what about all these other smaller cities being absolutely hammered? The Russians are still targeting civilians. Russia continues to manifest its fears through acts of pure terrorism across Ukraine, once again targeting the homes of families and their sleeping children. Among the regions targeted overnight was in Sumy, where a residential neighborhood was hit, 13 private homes were destroyed, and 14 people hospitalized, including a family with 3 children, boys aged 5 months, 4 years, and 6 years old. Trump urges Zelensky-Putin one-on-one to fix their very bad relationship. Trump believes if we can just get Zelensky and Putin in the same room, then these two can be friends again. It's a simple misunderstanding. If they just look into each other's eyes, maybe they'll fall in love. It's so dumb, guys. And the Russians aren't going to say no to a face-to-face meeting. They're just going to demand conditions that will never be accepted. So the Russians are saying, we'll meet Zelensky if Zelensky comes to the Kremlin. If Zelensky goes to Moscow, then Putin will have a face-to-face. This is a trap. They would just arrest him and kill him. Everybody knows this, except Trump. Zelensky rejects Putin's Moscow meeting proposal. So where is the meeting going to take place? The Russians are saying, what about Hungary? Polish Prime Minister rejects Hungary as a venue for potential face-to-face meeting. Here's Donald Tusk. Budapest. Not everyone may remember this, but in 1994, Ukraine already got assurances of territorial integrity from the United States, Russia, and the UK in Budapest. Maybe I'm superstitious, but this time I would try to find another place. Viktor Orban is not a neutral third party. Viktor Orban is entirely pro-Russian. Viktor Orban has traveled to Moscow to meet with Putin, his master. But has Viktor Orban ever gone to Kyiv to meet with Zelensky to show his support for both sides or prove he's neutral? And he's not, so no, it's not going to take place in Belarus. It's not going to take place in Hungary. It's not going to take place in Slovakia. It's not going to take place in North Korea. Switzerland is ready to give Putin immunity for peace talks. Switzerland could work, but Putin would then have to fly over countries that are trying to arrest him because he's an internationally wanted war criminal. So this just isn't going to happen, guys. Trump wants it to happen because he thinks something magical will happen, but a face-to-face meeting is literally Putin's worst nightmare. To have a younger, stronger, more well-loved, charismatic, democratically elected leader standing next to him in front of a podium. By contrast, he looks decrepit. He looks weak. He looks ineffective. So no, Putin is never going to allow this meeting, but he doesn't want to tell Trump no. So he's just going to stall, delay, and give unrealistic conditions until Trump gets bored and stops demanding they have a face-to-face. Zelensky wants it. He would love to do it. He flew to Turkey like 3 months ago to make this happen. But Putin's just going to make stuff up and then never show up. What about security guarantees? 10 nations ready to send troops to Ukraine as Trump backs a security plan. Around 10 countries, led by Britain and France, may send troops to Ukraine under a new peace framework. This is what Trump is saying, and we're getting volunteers. Japan, as well as Sweden and some other countries, say they're ready to contribute to security guarantees for Ukraine. If there's a settlement or a ceasefire and Russia allows it, there are nations willing to send their militaries to Ukraine as peacekeeping forces along the border. But Russia never agreed to this. Trump is just saying things that Russia never intends on doing. Lavrov says Ukraine's security talks a road to nowhere without Russian involvement. Russia opposes European troops in Ukraine under a Trump-backed security guarantee. Here's one of Russia's negotiators. Hypothetical deployment of foreign troops on the territory of Ukraine is being actively discussed in the West. Those who promote this idea seem to be trying to undermine diplomatic efforts and make a peace deal impossible. Moscow has made it absolutely clear that the deployment of foreign military contingents in Ukraine is totally ruled out. It is high time to put an end to provocative debates of this kind. This is Russia's red line. They want Ukraine to be completely defenseless. Ukraine's not allowed to have a military. All weapon shipments have to stop before Russia will stop killing people. So what does Russia want? Russia and China should be involved in the security guarantees for Kyiv, according to Lavrov. Lavrov is saying who should be the guarantee of security if there's a ceasefire or a frozen conflict, and why not the Russian military? Who better to keep the peace between Russia and Ukraine in a frozen conflict than the Chinese military and the Russian military? They really do think we're this stupid. Here's Dmitry Medvedev. He might be drunk. The brainless Gallic rooster can't let go of the idea of sending troops to Ukraine. It's been explicitly stated, no NATO troops as peacekeepers. Russia won't accept such a security guarantee. But the hoarse, pathetic bird continues to crow to prove it's king of the coop. What the hell does this mean, guys? It's so stupid. Other headlines. Russian oil flows to Hungary and Slovakia resume after Ukrainian pipeline strike. I thought the damage to this pipeline was worse, but Hungary is saying the oil shipments through this pipeline has resumed. But something tells me this pipeline is going to be hit again. If Ukraine struck it once, if that was their objective, and Russia repaired it within 3 days, then just strike it again, or somewhere different. Slovakia and Hungary have had 3.5 years to come up with energy alternatives, and they have refused, because they're working for the Russians, and they want to be dependent on Moscow for their energy needs. Russia's harvest for buckwheat, a kitchen staple, set to hit a 6-year low. Buckwheat is on track to fall to its lowest level since 2019. Your buckwheat harvests are weak, Russia. They're weak. As far as good news, Ukraine's real GDP grew at 1.7% in Q2 of 2025. It's not a lot, but it's better than going negative. I think a third of Ukraine's GDP was lost in 2022, but they've been slowly growing it back, and every little bit matters. Final video I want to share with you is from journalist Vitaly Siduk. He is in the city of Sumy and wants to share with you guys what the Russians deliberately did to Sumy University a week before the fall semester was supposed to start.
Hello, just to let you know that this building behind me is University in Sumy, that was affected by Russian missile this week. From the moment I heard explosion, I was nearby, only to find out that this is the exact place where the rocket fell. If you can see, there's a bigger building and windows are smashed completely. You can see the aftermath. And this is a place where students should have gone to continue their education in September. Now they're not willing to do that. This is not a military object. This is university. So Russia wants to erase our identity, to erase their ability to start to get knowledge. So this is one of many reasons why a civilized world should not give up on Ukraine and do everything possible to stop Russia.
Russia will be defeated. Continue supporting Ukraine. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.